Hi guys, how's it? Kia ora to my kiwi whanau, and welcome to another video, an opinion piece by the Fairweather rugby fan, Straight Edge 3X's. First off, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you 1,000+ followers. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, things coming in the works, always kind of working on things. Obviously, being a package delivery driver during this time of year is quite hectic, so I don't have a whole lot of time. But like I said, you guys can always reach out to me on my email address. We can talk on WhatsApp. I'm keen on it. I don't mind at all. All kinds of conversations I'm having with various people of all kinds of backgrounds on there, and I do enjoy talking to my followers. It's great. It's good fun. So as you can see in the title of this video, so we've got the Champions League kind of going on in the Northern Hemisphere in Europe, and I have tried in vain to watch it. And it's really, really cool to see a lot of our Southern Hemisphere brothers plying their trade north of the equator. But it's just the brand of rugby that I just can't buy into, man. And that's why I decided to make this video, to kind of explain what I don't like about Northern Hemisphere rugby. Now, a full disclaimer here from the beginning. I know I do live in America, and I do know I follow the MLR. We'll be following it quite a bit more leading up in the next year, because we have our own local team here. The Dallas Jackals getting ready to kick off here in February. Very excited about that. Obviously, having my local pro team to throw my support behind. But I guess I'll just get on to it, man. And it's, like I said, this is totally an opinion piece. Anybody disagrees with me and kind of tell me where I'm wrong, more than welcome to respond in the comment section, if you will. So, I will start off with the Premiership. Obviously, the most, I guess, I don't know if it's the highest pay. Yeah, it pays pretty damn well. Very, very well run there in England, and it's just so for any Americans that do follow me on here, the best way I can explain it to you guys is the difference between collegiate basketball and the NBA. Now, take in mind, I don't really watch either, because I was never really a huge basketball fan. Being a 5'7" guy, I was never really that keen on playing it because I was bad. I also couldn't play, and I shot like a girl. I'll be completely honest. Same reason I never really played baseball, because apparently I throw like a girl. Sue me. That's why I played hockey. But that would probably be the best way. It's like the NBA or the NHL or Major League Baseball or NFL would be Super Rugby, or, any of the other major Southern Hemisphere competitions, and the collegiate version would be the Premiership. Not to say there's not any good rugby being played in the Premiership. No, there's heaps of great rugby players in the Premiership. If you're a fan of teams that are like overly paid and overly funded, go watch Saracens. That's like the New England Patriots or New York Yankees of the Premiership. Like, they have the biggest names, and they consistently win. Well, they didn't this last weekend, but they've got like the big names, the big guys, all the big dudes are at Saracens plying their trade. And to me, it's not as exciting. And I could go to the French competition, kind of the same thing. Like, theirs is a little bit more. You get teams like Toulon and Racing 92, where Trevor Nakane is now playing. Finn Russell plays for Racing 92. And it seems like with the French competition, they're trying their best, but it's like they're just buying the best players and bringing them there and hoping that it translates to a better product, which it does. It's bearable. The only reason I don't really follow French rugby is it's hard to find it in English, and I don't speak a word of French outside of oui. Yes, a couple of handful of phrases, but nothing too major. And then you have the URC, which is really about to get flipped on its head with the Sharks looking the way they are. I could easily see the Sharks. I don't see a single Northern Hemisphere team in URC giving them more than a minor headache. They are probably going to dominate this competition now. Sia Khaleesi being there, everybody, Fossey, everyone. It's gonna be a long season in the URC with that team back in the fold, provided that they actually do get to go. with this Omicron variant coming out if they get to go back north of the equator and play. I'm not even a big Chelsea Sharks fan, but if I was a betting man, I would put my money on them in the URC. That's going to be bad. And that just tells you right there, they're the Southern Hemisphere team. And I kind of wonder at times, and I've had this conversation before, like, yeah, Australia, New Zealand are very, very well off compared to South Africa or Argentina, but still not nearly as well off as Great Britain, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, even France. And I think that's what kind of makes the Southern Hemisphere that much more better, too, is that, like, you know, these guys are, you know, you look at a guy like Sia Kolisi, who never knew where his next meal was going to come from, or Mpipi, who doesn't have a family. And I think that's kind of what makes the Southern Hemisphere. You see a lot of the Pacific Island boys that end up on New Zealand and Australia, they don't come from crap. A lot of them come from state housing. And then you look at a guy that I can't stand, like Owen Farrell, and he's like the product of wealth. Johnny Wilkinson grew up very, very wealthy. I don't think it rubbed off on him the same way. But it's like, I feel like when you have to struggle just to know where your next meal is, that's going to make you a stronger rugby player, at least in my opinion. You look at, I'm wearing a Tonga hoodie right now. You look at a lot of those guys that come from Pacific Islands, and they come from not really even having running water or electricity. And when you're having to fight just to get your next meal, you know, it makes you a stronger competitor when you're playing a sport like rugby where, dude, it's like the difference between you being homeless and you having a place to live in, a solid, you know, being able to open up your icebox in your refrigerator and see food in it. You know, it's the difference. And I think that's what makes Southern Hemisphere that much better, because those guys are just hungry. Because if it wasn't for that, they probably wouldn't know where their next meal was coming from. And that's my big thing, is I don't feel like Northern Hemisphere, I don't feel like those players are hungry enough. Like, that's why they're bringing so many imports into the Northern Hemisphere, because, like, you know, it's you gotta bring those poor guys in, because they're gonna fight just to get their next meal. So that's kind of why I don't see enough that hunger, that desire to win. I don't see it in those Northern Hemisphere teams. And I just see it's a lot of just offload, run, score. It's not, let me fold this guy in half. Like, you do see it, but it's just not the same as it is. I mean, like, I know a lot of my SAFA brothers and sisters, they probably don't feel too good about Super Rugby. I still follow that competition no matter what, because I am, despite, you know, everything, I am a massive Waikato Chief supporter. Like, losing Damian McKenzie this year is going to suck, but I think we'll be just fine. You know, even if you don't like the Chiefs, you like the Satyrs, you like what Scott Robertson is doing down there. Even if you look at Australia, like, I think their rugby is rubbish, but, like, it's cool to see the Western Force. You want to see the Taws get better. You want to see the Queensland Reds get better. You know, the Brumbies. You get all of that, and you just don't get that in the Northern Hemisphere. I don't feel like you get that, like, that same, like, sense of desire. And I think the biggest reason also is that in a place like England, you've got the Premiership football, soccer, which is arguably the top league on the planet. You could say, oh, well, you know, Spain, Italy, all that, the Bundesliga in Germany, but, like, nah, man, it's like Super Rugby is the biggest thing in New Zealand. You could say, oh, they're netball. No, dude, it doesn't even come close to Super Rugby's popularity. Australia, obviously, the NRL and AFL do really well, and we're seeing how that's affecting rugby union, because it's not nearly as popular as it used to be there. I don't think it helps having a next-door neighbor that beats the brakes off of you every year internationally. You know, but it's like, in South Africa, I've had people argue, like, football is much more popular, and I get that, obviously. There's also still a pretty big stigma, I hate to say it, about rugby in South Africa. I have noticed. It's unfortunate, but I have noticed a lot more of the rugby supporters in South Africa tend to be Caucasian. You know, Europe tend to be white, but that doesn't mean that people of other, be it colored, be it black, don't love the sport there too. Obviously, I think football, soccer is still much bigger in South Africa than rugby is. But for the people that love rugby in South Africa, they're all in. They might follow cricket as well. And, it's just, I think that's what it is about the Southern Hemisphere, is that it's just like, these guys come from villages. These guys don't come from much, as opposed to, you get like guys like Maro Itoje, who's a child of Nigerian immigrants, but like that guy's, like, he has a political science degree. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, he might have struggled, but I don't think it's like the same as if he'd grown up in Nigeria and Lagos and like that mega city of Lagos, Nigeria. I don't think it's really the same. I just don't see, like, you can look at guys in the Southern Hemisphere, and there's a lot of guys that come from places that you don't want to come from. And they're just amazing athletes, and they're amazing at their sport and their trade. I don't feel like you really get that with England. Like, yeah, you'll get guys that are child of immigrant. Oh, my dad's Tongan, my dad's Samoan, whatever, But it's not really the same when you grow up in a place like England as it is to Argentina or South Africa. It's not the same, and I think that shows in the product that's placed on the field in rugby union. You just see a lot hungrier players from south of the equator, because it's not, even in a place like I said, Australia and New Zealand are very, very stable. I've been to both of them, been there, I've stayed there, all that kind of stuff. But I still wouldn't say it's as easy as England. England's very, very, very wealthy, very, very, very stable. Not to say there isn't poverty. There's poverty everywhere, but it's just, you feel like it's a lot more in New Zealand, Australia, definitely South Africa, definitely Argentina. And Argentina is like, it's not the wealthiest country in South America. Brazil has that fine distinction based on size, and there's just a shitload of money there. But it's not the same as, even guys that grow up in France. It's just not the same. Guys that grow up in Italy, it's not the same. Like, even you look at those teams like England, how many Southern Hemisphere guys are there on their roster? We saw Scotland. Like, dude, at one point they had like 5 South Africans on the field. Bundy Aki is a Kiwi. Lowe is a Kiwi. Those are both Irishmen, and it's like, you get that. And then you even look, there's like a Safa guy on France. You get those foreign guys. They get those Fijians. They get those guys. Because they don't come from where they have, 3 hots and a cot easily. You get those guys that struggle to get where they're at, and that's shown on the field. So, yeah, that's my rant. That's my opinion. I just don't think the Northern Hemisphere guys are as hungry as those Southern Hemisphere guys, and it shows in what's put on the field. But, yeah, with that said, like I said, I'm going to try and follow the European, the Champions League for rugby. It's just not very entertaining to me. It's cool, yeah, you get to see some cool guys, and, like, we got to see my man Dwayne Vermeulen make his debut, and, obviously his team won, playing for Ulster, I believe, and it's just really weird seeing him in that jersey more than anything, because I know he hasn't always been a Bull, but, like, that's what I've liked to see him in, is that blue Bulls jersey. You can't go wrong with it, with the Vodacom logo across the front. It's a winner's jersey, in my opinion. But, yeah, like I said, that's just my opinion. If you guys think I'm wrong, you're more than welcome to comments. Kind of say, hey, dude, you're wrong. It's great. Like I said, this is my personal opinion. I just can't get into it because it's just not exciting to me. But, yeah, let me know what you think, guys. And I will make another video again very, very soon. Cheers, guys.